Lightsabers, hands, and the dark side. So when you think of lightsabers and hands in the same sentence, you're probably thinking about how both Anakin and Luke lost a hand to a lightsaber and an arm. And that's been a pretty common theme in Star Wars, and you can read into that in a few different ways. So let's take Anakin first. So when he kind of loses, he becomes disarmed, really, by the lightsaber. Well, there's a few ways you can look at it. First of all, it happens when he kind of charges in ahead of Obi-Wan, so he has some arrogance, he's getting too far ahead of himself, and he's not waiting to work as a team with Obi-Wan. And that shows kind of his defiance. It hits at his future in that way. You can also look at it as what happens after he loses the hand. So after it's gone, it's replaced with this mechanical thing, and it's sort of like his first step in a way toward being Darth Vader. He becomes this cyborg, he becomes part machine, and it references that line that Obi-Wan delivers in the next trilogy, in the original trilogy, when he says, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. This is sort of the start of it, when Anakin gets that mechanical hand. And you can say the same for Luke. So if you go to the original trilogy and Luke loses his hand, it's sort of a similar situation. So he also loses his hand because he charges ahead. So he leaves his training on Dagobah with Yoda because he's afraid that his friends are in jeopardy, but as a consequence, he's leaving his training right in the middle. And so maybe he could have prepared somehow in a better way, or who knows? He just kind of goes ahead and doesn't really think about it enough in advance, arguably. And, who is he? Like, even with, well, almost no matter how much training he has, he's not really a match for Darth Vader, especially at this point. I mean, Darth Vader, he's so skilled with the lightsaber. He's been training for decades, using the lightsaber for decades. And then here's Luke, he's gone to Dagobah and trained for a little while, but that's no match for somebody who's kind of lived a life using a lightsaber that way. So, I mean, it almost brings Luke back to reality in a way. Like, he's no match for Vader, and that's a little reminder, like, there goes his hand. And it also kind of accentuates or is a little punctuation to the "I am your father" moment. And it also makes him a little more like his father, right? So Vader cuts off Luke's hand, and it parallels Vader's own experience as Anakin in the past, kind of losing a hand to charging in first. And, well, it sets Luke on the path to the dark side as well, and gives him that kind of mechanical hand. Very similar situation to what happened to his father. Now, you get to the prequel trilogy, or not the prequel, you get to the sequel trilogy now with Rey and Kylo Ren, and we haven't seen that happen to one of the main characters, so nobody's lost a hand that way. But you still have had some very important hand moments with the characters. So first you look at, and lightsaber related moments too. So first you look at The Force Awakens, and you have the scene where both Kylo Ren and Rey are calling to the lightsaber. They're trying to get it. They're using the Force, but it's kind of the Force through their hand. And so they're both fighting over it, and then at that point, the saber comes to Rey. And so that's still, even though nobody ends up losing a hand, that's still kind of a pivotal moment involving the hand and the lightsaber. I don't know if you ever thought about it that way. And even more so in The Last Jedi, you have several kind of both hand and lightsaber related moments that also hint to the dark side. So you do have that, that kind of connection that Kylo Ren and Rey have there's that famous moment where they're kind of reaching out their hands. And something that's important about that scene is Kylo Ren takes off his glove. And so they're both reaching for each other's hands. That kind of is the reverse of the mechanical hand in a way. It's, you have the humanity of both of these characters almost converging, but then at the last second, you know, that doesn't really work out. And then you compare it to later when you have kind of a return to a very similar scene. Kylo Ren is asking Rey to join him, and he's again offering his hand. But you'll notice the second time, Kylo is extending a gloved hand. So that seems more like it's Kylo Ren speaking there from the dark side, rather than it seemed like it was Ben Solo earlier who removed his gloved hand and kind of was extending his humanity to Rey. So that's kind of one interpretation, or that's my interpretation of those two scenes. And then you put the lightsaber into the mix actually right after that kind of offering of Kylo Ren. So right after Kylo Ren extends his gloved hand like this, and Rey, well, she rejects that offer. And then again, we have the hands. They're fighting for the lightsaber using the Force. It parallels that scene in The Force Awakens when they're both trying to call the lightsaber to them. And this time it's a total stalemate. So it shows that they're both strong in the Force, and, you know, they're equally matched. And it's totally, you know, even. And it's kind of right down the middle, light side versus dark side almost, fighting over this saber. So anyway, those are just some of my thoughts on lightsabers, hands, and the dark side. So I just thought more about this recently, that even though nobody lost a hand in the recent, in the sequel trilogy now, we've still had some very big moments that have included a lightsaber and included hands. And, you know, it still symbolized a temptation by the dark side, or a reminder that you could end up turning to the dark side. So maybe that's the kind of approach of the new trilogy to, I don't know, show the temptation to the dark side. It's just a different route, that they're going than the previous two trilogies that way. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments section. These are just some of my thoughts, some of which I'm coming up with on the fly, but I'd love to hear what you guys think.